Just oh, good. Okay. Take.
Oh, all right. So I'm Phil. I'm an alcoholic, and I'm grateful to be here and share my story with y'all. Me and Josh have been coordinating with each other for the past several weeks, and trying to set it up. And tonight I was able to do it. So here I am. So I hope I don't bore y'all to death. We'll get through this, and hopefully we'll all be sober at the end of it. Uh, so starting from the beginning, sharing my experience, strength, and hope. Supposed to share with you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. I think that's how the big book puts it. So, in the beginning, so my first run in with alcohol was at the age of 14. A friend of mine that lived down the road from me, his dad made homemade wine, and so like we snuck into the garage and raided his dad's stash of wine. And I wasn't even after the effect. It was more of the excitement of doing something and not getting caught, kind of thing. Uh, and right around the same time as this experience, I smoked my first joint with my younger brother, who was responsible for introducing that particular drug to me. So, anyways, as a teenager in high school, I did the normal teenager thing, drinking at on the weekend at parties and stuff like that. And the book also talks about some people are born alcoholics and some eventually cross a line they can't go back from. I was that person, the one that eventually crossed the line. But at this point, that hadn't happened yet. I'm still just doing it, every now and again. Uh, so towards the end of my high school experience, I was dating a girl from a different high school, and I ended up getting her pregnant, and so I decided to quit school. Real smart idea. Quit school and get married to her because I thought that was the right thing to do. It was my child, so I figured I would take care of the child, and what better way to do that than to get married to her? And we moved into an apartment here in town, and later on we moved to another town, like about a year or so later, town of Dawson Springs, about 30 minutes down the road. And I become friends with a guy that lived next door to me. We were in this small apartment complex, and became real good friends with this guy next door. And we literally drank like every weekend, all weekend. And still at this point, I had control and hadn't become a slave to the drink just yet. Uh, so, anyways, eventually though we started doing it a lot, like during the week, weekend, whatnot. So I was having some problems in that marriage about 6 years in. So around we got divorced after about 6 years of marriage, and the problem was we were having problems, and I was working at a job, and I ended up cheating on my wife with a girl that I worked with, and I haven't always been a really good person. There was a time in my life when I was like the worst of the worst. Uh, Me and this girl were both married, just not to each other. Uh, entering into the relationship, entering into that relationship, picked back up into marijuana. So throughout the entire relationship, there was a lot of drinking and smoking. During this relationship, the brother that introduced me to marijuana introduced me to a new substance, meth. Well, I was instantly in love with this one. This one right here is like I'd found the missing piece of my life. My brother was getting this drug a lot because his wife was friends with like the main, or his wife was friends with a girl that was dating like the main drug dealer. So we were getting it for free. So we did it every day for like 3 months straight. And at this point, I saw the potential for it to become a big problem. So I made a promise to myself at that moment. I made it up in my mind that if I ever got so bad that I had to buy some for myself, I would put it down. Well, a few months later, I was at work. I felt horrible. There was a guy there that actually sold this stuff. And so I went up to him and I was like, man, I need at least $25 worth. I figured that would be enough to get me through the night. And so I'm in the bathroom with a piece of tin foil, a hitter, and a lighter. And as I'm about to put the heat to it, I remembered that promise I had made myself. And so I was like, all right. So after I finished it all up, I was able to successfully put it down, like literally put it down and not do it anymore. Uh, so later on, this is marriage number 2, by the way, because I ended up getting married to the girl that I cheated on my first wife with. I ended up getting married to her, which was a really good idea. Uh, after marriage 2 ended after about 6 years also, and we were living up north at the time, about 6 hours away, and I was at work, and just one day she decided to pack up the kids and all as much stuff as she could cram in her car, and left me while I was at work. I had no idea, didn't know what was going on. So I get home and find that she's gone, the kids are gone, and I had to literally wait, till I got paid before I could move. So I did the same thing when I got paid. I crammed my car with as much stuff as I could get in, and I came back to Kentucky. Left a lot of stuff behind. Uh, so for a very long time, I didn't do any substance at all. I didn't drink, didn't do meth, none of that. I got a job at a restaurant and started going to church with my parents. And eventually, I entered into another relationship with a girl that I went to church with. She had never drank or did any kind of drug. She had never even smoked a cigarette. So, I figured, hey, this is going to be good because I'm not going to be around anything that I used to do. So we eventually got married. And as soon as we got married, I lost my job for whatever reason. It's like the place I was working at fabricated a reason to just let me go. Was she had been buying this house for like 8 years before I got into the picture. And now, we're in danger of losing this house, and it's my fault. And so this was a bit of a struggle. But also at this point, I had not drank or did any kind of substance for about 2 years. So one of the guys that went to church with me, he's always sat in front of me, and he was in construction. And he knew of my situation, and he asked me like, "Hey, you still looking for a job?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He said, "Well, you know anything about concrete?" I was like, "Well, I know it hurts when you fall on it." And he's like, "Hey, that's good enough. That's good enough. I'll teach you everything you need to know, and I'll take you under my wing." And he taught me how to do concrete work, and I got really good at it. That's one thing that I always prided myself. Any job I ever did, whether flipping burgers, pumping gas, whatever, I became the best I could, better than everybody around me. And I was a very prideful person. So, anyways, once again, life was good. Had money coming in. Again, and bills were getting paid. At this point, I hadn't drank alcohol or smoked weed for almost 3 years. And I hadn't done meth for almost 13 years, give or take. So as time went on, one of the big things to do on the road, because we were gone for, sometimes weeks at a time, in hotel rooms, one of the big things to do was drink after work. So we did this a lot. I made good money, so I was able to send money home to take care of home, and I was able to pocket a lot of money and take care of me. They always put 2 guys in each hotel room, and I never knew who I would be paired with from one job to the next. So one time, my boss hires a new guy that he knew well and put him in the hotel room with me. First night we roomed together, I'm laying in bed and I look over, and in the floor next to my roommate's bed is what looks like tinfoil folded up. So I get out of bed and I pick this up, and it's like my mind knew what I was looking at. It's like, and I unfolded it to find a very familiar drug from my past. So I wake my roommate up and I showed him what had fallen out of his bed. He then asked, "Well, would you like to do some?" And I was all over it, absolutely. It's like, hell yeah, let's do it. So now, I'm drinking and doing meth on the road constantly. I would never do it at home at first, but as my dependency got greater, I eventually started even doing it at home in the garage. I would go to the garage and fix something, but the whole time I was actually just out there getting my fix. I was able to successfully hide this use from my wife for like 7 years. I remember coming down and saying such hurtful, mean things to my wife to the point of making her sob so hard. And then I would go to the garage and fix something, and then come back in the house and apologize to my wife, and promise to never be that cold or mean again. But let me come down, and that evil, mean person would arise again. It was truly a vicious cycle that repeated itself for several years. I eventually got hooked up with a rough group of people, making long out-of-town trips to pick up 5 pounds of meth to bring back into town. These people were the type of people that led me to believe if I didn't do as they wanted me to, that harm could come to my family. And I don't know if they were serious or not, but I believed them, and that was enough. So one night, they made me use my wife's car to transport someone out of town. So I had to tell her the seriousness of the situation. So when I got back from the trip, my wife asked me to leave and put an EPO on me where I couldn't be around her or the kids. She was in fear of her life, and for good reason. So at this point, I don't have a job, I don't have my family, and I was not good at couch surfing at all. So I spent a lot of time living in my truck in one of the coldest winters I can remember. But even at that, I was good with it as long as I had my drug of choice. So one day I finally decided to admit I had a problem. So I arranged a meeting at my aunt's house with my wife, my brother in law, and my aunt. And, I saw what true heartbreak looked like in my wife's eyes as she began to weep as I gave my confession. It was truly a look I hope I never see again. Instantly, everyone told me I needed to go to rehab and get help, but I wasn't ready yet. It's not like it's not that I didn't agree with them. It's that part of me is like, yeah, I need to, but the other part's like, you can't make me. I was like in that kind of zone. So several days passed as I thought about it until I finally came to the conclusion I was for sure ready for something different. I was tired of hurting and hurting those around me I loved. So I got up this morning and looked up the rehab center my brother-in-law had gone to, and I called him up and went through a phone consultation. And by the end of the conversation, had set up a time for me to do a face-to-face consultation with this facility. And so I get up the next morning. Well, what we got to do when we're going to stop doing the drug, we got to get that one more in, right? That's what I had to do, anyways. I had to get that one more in because I'm about to stop this. So let's get one more in. And I ended up oversleeping. I'm running late to get to this. I make this hour and 15-minute drive, and it's saying my GPS is showing I'm going to be like 45 minutes late to this thing. And I call them up, and I'm like, "Hey, look, I'm on the road. I'm going to be about 45 minutes late, but I'm on my way." And the guy's like, "Hey, I'm sorry. There's nothing I can do for you today." And I remember breaking down and just begging. I was like, "Please, I need this." And he said, "Well, I can set you up an appointment tomorrow to see you at 1 o'clock tomorrow." So I hang up with him. I call my wife, which I'm not supposed to do, by the way, because I got an EPO on me. I'm not even allowed to call her, but I'm calling her. I'm breaking the law here. Of course, I am an addict, so I was good at that. And I told her the situation. She said, "Well, let me call my mom and them, and I'll call you back." So a few minutes later, she calls me back, and she's like, because her mom and them lived about 30 minutes down the road from the place that I was going to go see these people. And she's like, "Well, mom and dad said that you can come there and stay the night, get a shower, get a change of clothes, get something to eat." And so I put them in my success story because, this is the parents of the woman that I did this great harm to, right? They could have said no. They knew the harm that I had caused. They could have said no, but they didn't. So they're part of my success story because had they said no, I probably wouldn't be here today. So on February the 15th of 2019, I began my journey. It was a 28-day facility, and during that 28 days, they touched on parts of the big book. They touched on a part in the big book that talked about how sometimes the family don't come back. And in all honesty, at first, that is why I decided to go, was to get them back. I was like, well, if I do this, they're going to be so proud of me. They're going to welcome me with arms wide open running. But that was a pill I had to chew down hard. Sometimes the family don't come back. But I decided to still stay because whether they came back or not, I had decided I was really done with the drugs and alcohol. So I did the 28 days, and I elected to go to the long-term facility, Center Point Recovery Center for Men, which was just down the road from this facility. I did 6 months there and stayed an additional month to get my alumni status and my silver chip. I moved back home in November of 2019, and things were good. The family did come back. For a while, the relationship seemed to get better. We even ended up pregnant in 21. My daughter was born October 9th of 21. But a little over a year of being home, the relationship took a turn for the worse, and I see myself headed for a relapse. For 2 years, I had already been sleeping alone. My wife and I were completely disconnected. So I made a hard decision to walk out of the relationship in 2025. Several months before I walked away, I had made my first appearance at an all night place. Here I am today still. It was almost like some force in the universe knew I would need this group, and it was right. Several people in the group helped me through this tough this tough split up. One person in particular was Amber. Amber sat with me many days and nights, helping me navigate this pain and confusion. The pain wasn't about my wife really; it was more about my little girl because I was spending time with her every day. You know, I would play with her before I'd go to work. I would on my days off. I spent all the time I could with her out in the yard playing on her playground that I'd gotten her, and because this was I had done so much harm to my other children in my previous marriages that I wasn't a dad, and it was like this was my last chance to do the dad thing right, and I was really grabbing onto that. I was running with it. I got to see her first steps. I got to hear her say daddy. I got to hear her tell me she loved me. I got to see her smile and light up whenever I'd come into the room. All these things that I missed out on with my other kids, I was getting to experience that, and I loved it. Eventually Amber and I got really, really close. So close, in fact, that we became a couple. Already, my life was getting better. Finally, I was seen, understood, and loved. I was loved in a way that I had always wanted to be loved, really. And our relationship started July 5th of 25. We lived 8 hours apart, but we spent lots of time together in the Zoom rooms. I even drove to her hometown of Taylor, Michigan 4 times. I drove 8 hour drive like most people drive downtown to go to the grocery store. And honestly, if I'd have had the gas and the time, I would have drove there every weekend. I would have. I drove up to Michigan to spend Christmas with her and her family. Then she rode back to Kentucky with me, and we celebrated New Year's together into 2026. I took her home after a few weeks in Kentucky and spent another week. Then I had to come home for work. And about a week later, we celebrated her 44th birthday, January 29th, in the Zoom rooms. And and at that point, Amber was 9 days away from celebrating 2 years sober, and I was 17 days away from 7 years. Then on February 1st, on a Sunday afternoon, I got a call that would affect me greatly. That would change my life. Amber's mom called me and told me that Amber was dead. And I can't tell you how hard that was for me to hear. My own parents, I loved them dearly, had some great parents, and it hurt when I lost them, but that was nothing like this. This was like 10 times worse. Uh, I would be lying if I told you I didn't have thoughts of getting high or even drunk. I had just lost the love of my life, so there was a lot of things going on in my head. I wanted to be angry. I wanted to isolate. I wanted to run as far away from these bad feelings as I could because I didn't like them. I didn't like them. I still don't like them to this day. So once again, all night plays to the rescue. Uh, at first, I wanted to be, like I said, I wanted to be angry. I wanted to isolate. I wanted to change the way I felt. But this program taught me different. Uh, I wanted to isolate, so instead I reached out to my home group, and they were always there. It didn't matter what time of day it was. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what day it was, what time it was. There was always somebody that would reach back. And so to this day, I honor Amber because I stayed sober through it all. If I can leave you with one thought that is true, it would be this: it's not always been easy, but it has always been worth it. And yeah, I feel like I wanted to stay sober, not just to honor her, but to show people that even in the toughest of circumstances, it is possible to stay sober. And so That's all I got, really. Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you, and thanks a lot, Josh, for asking me.
Thank you very much for sharing your story, Phil. I think it's very powerful, and I'm honored that you were able to say yes. So thank you very much. And let me just grab my script here. Let's see. All right. We've now reached the sharing portion of the meeting. Please limit your sharing to around 3 minutes, so that many of us can get a chance to share. When you have 30 seconds left, our timekeeper will flash a reminder on the screen so you can begin to wrap up your share. We endeavor to maintain a safe meeting space and focus on recovery, so we ask that participants refrain from negative crosstalk towards fellow members or our volunteer service staff, and do not engage in derogatory language, criticism, or medical advice out of our respect for other people in the meeting. If you receive any inappropriate messages in the chat, please alert me or one of the other hosts. And please turn off your camera if you're doing anything distracting during your share. But other than that, please keep it on because I personally like to see the cameras on. I feel like it builds fellowship.